Okay, everyone, thanks again for being here. This is the Caring Conference, Our Courageous Acts. I'm Denise Brown, and our next presenter is Deb Hallisey, and she's going to give us insights about choices we make during caregiving. So Deb, take it away.
Thank you. Thank you. And boy, this has been really a wonderful day. There's been so many insights and great presentations, and I'm thankful that we are recording this, not just because I want to go back and listen to it, but I am my mom's caregiver. She will be 90 February 1st. And every 2 weeks for 4 days, I'm her caregiver, and this is one of those weekends. And so I needed to step away about an hour and a half to do all the things we knew to get her ready for the day and get her something to eat. And so the things that I was not able to participate in, I am looking forward to catching up with later. So I think it's really kind of interesting. I think we don't realize it, but we choose caregiving over and over again, time and time again. And there we go. All right. But I guess the question really is, does anybody really choose caregiving? I mean, you might. I did, to the extent that I knew, as the only daughter and the youngest, that I would really be helping my parents. And so I chose to move back to New Jersey. But I also chose to live an hour away, because I knew that I needed some space as well. The truth of the matter, there are many people who are caregivers who don't choose this role and maybe had a difficult relationship with their caree, and that makes it very, very hard. So I love this quote. This came out of an article from the Huffington Post, and I think it's true. There are days when I think, the front door is the only thing that stands between freedom, and don't think we don't eye it, because the truth of the matter is that we do sometimes. And still, we show up. We have good days, bad days, overwhelming days, days we're too tired, days that are awesome, and days where we feel like I can't go on, but every day we show up. And truthfully, if I had known then, when I kind of casually moved back to New Jersey, what I know now, I may not have been so casual about it, because caregiving is emotionally hard and financially hard and physically hard. But we do choose caregiving time and time again. Every time something changes physically or cognitively with your caree, you may not realize it, and it may not be conscious, but you're choosing it again. Every time the process you have in place breaks, you choose it again. And boy, every time your life is impacted and there's something in your life has to change in order to keep this role, you choose it again. It's not always a cognitive, okay, I'm going to choose it, but we do time and time again. So then I was thinking, so what inspires our yes? What inspires us to say yes to caregiving? Well, first of all, it's different for everyone. I would like to think that the fact that you love the person you're caring for is the reason that you're doing it. That's not always true. Sometimes you do it because you're the only person that's available to do it. Sometimes you're doing it because you're guilted into doing it. And sometimes you're doing it because you have no choice. And that is probably the hardest, to choose it time and time again when you feel like there hasn't been a choice. For me, even though I did choose it, I still find it easier if I surround myself with emotional support. I've talked about this with a lot of people. Denise and I have had this conversation. We define, and particularly the healthcare industry defines, caregiving as a series of tasks, right? Those instrumental activities of daily living, the activities of daily living. But the truth of the matter is, it's more emotional. It's the tasks get done, but it's the emotion, the worry, the frustration, the joy that really, really can make or break this for us. And so having an emotional support system around me is what allows me to choose it over and over again and inspires my yes. I've also learned, we've talked about this, that I've got to set boundaries, right? And not just with my mom, but I have to set boundaries with other people in my life. And I have friends who have never been a caregiver, and they really and truthfully don't get it. And so I've set boundaries with them. And if that becomes something that is no longer working, I've also made the decision to set aside that friendship for right now. Doesn't mean it's forever, but for right now, when I'm in this, I have got to preserve my own mental, physical, and spiritual health. And that means setting boundaries and probably also, setting some people aside. And I'm okay with that. And then we've also got to work to possibly preserve or mend relationships. My mom and I struggled when I was younger. And so I was really apprehensive when my dad was diagnosed with congestive heart failure. We lost him about a year later, and I was his caregiver. But I also knew that this meant the start of my caregiving for my mother. And so I kind of realized that I needed to mend the relationship, figure out ways to become a team, and then preserve that. Or this new role I was taking on could really break the relationship that we had. And that is not something that I wanted to have happen. So the question, the $64,000 question, if you've ever heard of that game show from the 50s, is what if caregiving was not your choice? Well, I love this thought, give yourself grace. My best friend that I've known for 40 years, we talk once a week on a Sunday night, and we made the commitment that not only would we share our week, but we would say to one another, this is the good thing that happened, and this is the bad thing that happened. And about 50% of the time, the bad thing might be something with mom. And she listened to me talk about this, and she said to me, you are doing a great job. You need to give yourself grace. And I was like, wow, I am doing a good job. I'm doing the best I can. And that means recognizing it and celebrating it and letting go when I'm not perfect in act or deed or even thoughts. The idea to give yourself grace was just mind-blowing to me. It really, really was. So what about if caregiving was not your choice? Okay. I'm here to tell you that it's okay to be angry or resentful with these emotions. You're going to feel a multitude of emotions. We've already talked about them: guilt, anger, frustration, joy, happiness. The bottom line that I figured out, even though I've chosen caregiving, it's what I do with these emotions that really matter. And it's really imperative for me to get help and create a support group. And I want to talk just for a moment, because when I talk about emotions, I think it's really important that we also understand that we have a family of origin and we have a family of choice. And oftentimes in this role as a caregiver, particularly if caregiving was thrust upon you as the daughter or the youngest, the one in closest proximity, whatever happened that brought you to this role, that we have unspoken expectations of our family of origin and the way they could and should help that they might not be able to live up to. The truth of the matter is, you can be a family of siblings of 2 or 10, and every single child in that family had a different childhood. You may have had the same parents, but you had a different childhood. And so their ability to show up for you or show up for the person you're caring for may be different than what you can do. And so I've kind of figured out along the way, my family of origin consists of my brother and myself, and he lives 12 hours away and is unable, because of physical health, to come here and spell me. I'm okay with that because he helps with mom differently through finances and calling her every day. So it's my family of choice, my friends, my extended family who really are my support network. And coming to realize and coming to terms with the fact that my family of origin can't do things for me the I may have wanted them to do allows me to say, it's okay. I love them still, and I'm going to take what they can do for me gratefully and look to my family of choice. I think it's really interesting sometimes too that people put their expectations on us, right? I remember having a conversation with a group of friends, and one friend got so angry for me that my brother was not traveling 12 hours to spell me. And it took me, it really surprised me. And I kind of, stopped for a moment. And in my head, I thought, you know what? That's your stuff, not mine. That's you being frustrated that your family members are not doing what you expect them to do. I don't need to take that on. In our family, what we're doing works. So I think sometimes we have to stop a moment and say, is this my stuff or their stuff? And can I let it go? I think I've learned that can be incredibly, incredibly important. So I'm going to stop for a moment, and in the poll, I'm going to ask you, can you think back to a time in retrospect that maybe you thought, oh, okay, I need to choose caregiving again because something broke or there was an emergency or a crisis? Did anybody have that in retrospect, realize, yeah, I could have just left that moment, that minute, but I chose to be a part of this again?
So in the chat room, go ahead and share a moment when you realized a choice was happening.
And I'm gonna, for the sake of time, I'm gonna continue, okay? Here's the thing. I love the song. Can you sing it in your head? Mama said there'd be days like this. Mama said there'd be days like this. Here's the thing. Nothing lasts forever. It may feel like it in the moment, especially when there are days like this, but nothing lasts forever. And that's a gift when we can remember that, because it allows us to stop, take a breath, and maybe make the choice again. So if you're feeling like, oh my God, I just can't do this anymore, okay? Recognize that if you want something to change, that it requires insights. And I want to talk for a moment of family of origin and gender and birth order. We already talked about family of origin and family of choice. But I think you would be surprised if you actually took a step back sometime and said, wow, I'm doing it this way because that's the way my mother did it. Or because I'm a girl and I don't feel comfortable saying this is not my job or I need your help. Or you're the youngest or you're the oldest. Like when something happens and we feel like I can't do this anymore, don't take the broad view and say, I just can't do this anymore, but look at what happened when this thought came into your mind. And then I want you to think about, is there something in my family of origin that happened when I was a kid that gives me this knee-jerk reaction? Or is it the fact that other people are putting the expectations on me because I'm the girl, or I'm the closest in proximity, or because I'm the oldest? Because once you have that insight, you can start to say yes in a different way. And once you can say yes in a different way, then you're on the way to making changes. I think it's really interesting sometimes that, we think it's an all or nothing, but truly, all you might need to do is change the structure to the day or the weekend, right? And maybe it's only for the day. I was very clear when I came up to Mom's last night. Mom, I've got this wonderful conference. I can come and go in it through the day. I'm going to be in Musk, but I need to have you out of bed and do everything we need to do. And I need to make sure you've eaten. So at 1 o'clock from 1 to 3, you're safe and you're good and you don't need anything. That's a very different structure to her day. And it's not always going to be that I'm asking her to do that, but being honest and setting that boundary gave me such a sense of, I can do it. I don't have to worry about her. Maybe you need a new plan for how to get her to the doctors. Maybe you need a new idea for how to cook meals. Or maybe it's just, one day a week, we are going to call it in. Uber delivers. Thank God for that. And so I can't do this anymore. If you don't make incremental changes, you're going to get to the point where you say, I can't do this anymore. And that's not good for you or for anyone else. And so I also want you to understand that small changes can lead to big changes. And that part of those small changes and those insights are our own self-talk, right? Has anyone other than me ever had an argument in their head with the person you're caring for? Right? All the time. I don't want to say something. There needs to be a change. And I'm anticipating what they're going to say to me, right? And let me tell you, in assigning my mother her responses, I'm just getting more and more angry with her, to the point then I come in and I bark at her and she has no idea why. And that's not a good way to start our weekend together, right? So somewhere along the way, when I was just, like having this argument in my head and, getting more and more angry, somewhere along the way, I and it doesn't happen right away. I can do this for 10 or 15 minutes. But at some point, this light bulb goes off. And I'm like, this is taking up too much real estate in my head. This is taking up too much real estate in my head. And that's my trigger to stop thinking about it. For me, it's kind of like, meditation. Like I stop and then it comes back and I stop and it comes back. But that's okay because I always let it go, even if I come back to it. So here's what I mean by small changes lead to big changes and setting boundaries and all the things we have talked about. My mom is in our home. I've been able to keep her here for 7 years. It's been a good run. But because I've been honest with her all along, and we've talked about her finances, and she knows what it means for me to run her house and my house and be her caregiver. What I didn't say to you is my mom is blind, which is why we have 24 live-in care when I'm not with her every other 2 weeks, which means I am completely responsible for her 64-year-old home and all the maintenance, completely responsible for paying all her bills, completely responsible for going grocery shopping. And we cook together, but much of it is on me. I have my own house that I have to worry about. I have a business that I'm trying to run. And during the last year, there has been many, many small but incremental changes to her health that are adding up. And so because we've had all these conversations, because I believe in intentional conversation with certain strategies is very helpful when you have to communicate. The weekend I saw her, after I thought I was going to have a heart attack because of the stress I was under, because we were changing caregiving agencies, for a full day, I kept thinking I should probably go to the hospital because I couldn't take a deep breath. My chest was so tight. I came to her and using the same language Elizabeth talked about, Mom, I am so stressed out. There's so much going on with you health-wise. There's so much going on with you, the house right now. And we've talked about this. You're going to run out of money. I really have got to do something different, and I need you to be a part of this. Guess what? We are working towards moving mom out of her house and into assisted living. That is a huge change for us. My mother said, I want to leave feet first. I never promised her we would. What I have said to her for 7 years is, Mom, you need to stay strong, because if you have to get into a wheelchair full time, this house cannot accommodate you. I never expected to say to her, Mommy, I can't do this anymore. It's taken such a toll on my health. Do I feel bad about it? Do I feel guilty about it? 100%. But because my mom and I are a team, and the first thing she said to me when I said I thought I was having a heart attack was, oh no, your health is not worth this. I am so grateful to her that she's willing to make this move. I can't tell you. Will there be a lot going on? Yes, right? Do I continue to choose caregiving? You bet. I will still have to support her emotionally. I will still have to support her financially, and I will still have to support her physically. That is not going to change, right? But I will tell you that even though I'm still mom's caregiver, what is my computer doing? I know that there will be the need for more emotional support for her as she makes this transition. And so I'm going to have to say yes to caregiving still in different ways, but that's okay. So for all your caring, for all your caregiving, let me say thank you. Because we all know choosing it time and time again, even if it's not a conscious thought, is what we do because we show up. So I would love to connect with you. These are all of my ways, and I can stick them in the chat room as well. This is my email. This is my phone number. And I would love to hear what's going on in chat or if there are any questions.
Okay, so I had to just type one answer in the chat room because the chat room has been busy. And really what was the question that you asked that sparked the conversation was, when did you choose it again? And what was interesting is those who shared that intentional choice looked at that choice in a different way because of the question you asked.
Good,
Yes. So it was empowering to think about there is a choice.
We don't always feel like there is, but there is. And it doesn't have to be a big one. It can be little ones along the way. And that can lead to the big change we need at the when we need it. I'm living proof of that.
It also makes me think about how sometimes our circumstances can feel like they trap us. And this idea that we can be intentional in terms of how we look at the circumstances can be helpful. And we know this, it's just so helpful to be reminded of it.
Yeah, 100%. If you can help me, Denise, I don't know that I said this, but I am the author of a book called Your Caregiving Relationship Contract, because I think every relationship is a contract and caregiving changes it with the person you're caring for. And so many of the things I talked about in this presentation is part of what's in the book. The first person who answered that question of looking back, when did you choose it? I'm going to send a copy of the book to, and I know, Denise, you're going to choose someone as well.
Yeah, so the first person to respond, I apologize, I'm just going through the chat, is Corey.
Oh, great.
Yeah, Corey's going to win. And then Janine is also going to win too. So
Oh,
we're gonna do both of them right now. So Janine, you are also a winner. Okay, Deb, oh, go ahead. Did you want to add anything?
the only thing I do want to say, because I forget this, an audio version of the book came out last week and it's available on Amazon. Patty, thank you for clapping, Patty. So if you don't have time to sit and read, there is an audio version of the book coming out. And the other thing I want to say, by the end of the month, if you know anyone, a Spanish version of the book is coming out as well.
Okay, excellent. Okay, thank you. Thanks, Deb.
You're welcome.